What's up, everybody? How's it going out there in podcast land, huh? Let's see. Welcome to my Gonna See My Friends podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about movies, memories, and everything in between. My name is Steven, and with me is my host, Toby Maximus, aka Toby Ballinger. How are you doing, Toby?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Steven. Happy podcast day.
Oh, I know. Great day.
Great day.
Every episode, we dive into the films that shaped us, the ones we can't stop talking about, and maybe even a few we've never seen. From cult classics to new releases, we break it all down with plenty of laughs, hot takes, and the occasional friendly disagreement. So let's go hang out with our friends. What's up, Tobe? Great week today, huh?
It was a great week. We had fun this week, huh? Me and you and
Yeah.
JJ and Eric B went and saw Sparta down in the city with a nice little Tuesday night activities. Yeah, man. One of my all-time favorite bands.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Shout out to Sparta, and I did have a beer. I had 2 beers actually that night.
You
And
did.
Didn't really feel it. I was exhausted the next day, but I think that was just because I had a lot of fried food and some beers, and it was a late night. So
it was a late night. Yeah, we got back around a little after midnight here in Sonoma County, but. Yeah, I was looking. So I love that venue. Really tiny venue, and got to talk to Matt, the bass player, for a little bit, and he remembered me from 2012 at the Independent. He's like, "Oh yeah, hey, what's up, man?"
Yeah,
he could have been
cool
shining me on. Yeah, they're really, really nice guys.
Love that, dude. There was, just to tell the listeners a little bit, they were playing the album Porcelain, their second album, all the way through, and it was cool because a lot of those songs I'd never heard live.
Yeah.
Even like just going down the rabbit hole of YouTube, I've never seen them live. So it's like,
right.
It was a kind of a bonus to see some of those songs live. So yeah, it's great.
It was, and they played it straight through, track by track.
Yeah.
Which I thought they were going to like mix in some other songs, and just by the end of the day, we'll have played the whole. They played it track 1, track 2, track 3. It was. You knew what song was coming next, and I just had a big smile on my face the whole time.
Yeah.
You and I standing right in front of Jim, dude, right front stage.
That was awesome, dude.
Best seat in the
I remember
house.
seeing them in 22 or 23.
Yeah, you were VIP, right?
A VIP, and they played Wiretap Scars, their first album, all the way through. And that was amazing because I remember talking to him before, him and Matt, and everybody, there was about 4 of us just talking to him, and we're all asking, hey, so when are you going to put Wiretap Scars out on vinyl?
No.
And he's like, just funny you guys say that. Just hold on probably about it. And then within the next month or 2, they released it. And I got 2 copies of it. I got a colored, like a splash color vinyl, and then I got the regular black vinyl. So, and I got tons of vinyl from them just from going to shows. You know, it was great. So
that is great.
Off to Sparta.
You were asking them about you. I said you were asking their merch guy if he had any vinyl, and he was like, no, just the signed posters, and they had a couple other
vinyl
there. And they only had a few of them though, right? You didn't.
Well, there was the vinyl of, it was like a collection of live songs that they put on the vinyl. They didn't have Porcelain. That's what I was asking, if they had Porcelain on vinyl. He was like, no.
Right.
And I missed out on that. I could have bought it, but I was like, well, I'll just wait until something. I can't remember what it was. And by that time it was gone. And so I was shit out of luck on that one. But yeah, my hat's off to that band, man. That was a great show.
Absolutely. Yeah. And hats off to their opener Mundo that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
MONDOUGH. They're on Instagram, and boy, they were a lot of fun. It was a different type of music.
It was really funky.
It was funky, and they were pros. I was watching how they were playing. They were playing thirds and fifths, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, are you guys all like band nerds from? He's like, not everybody asked us that, but no, man, we just kind of figured it out. I'm like, fucking incredible, man. Talked to their lead
Yeah.
singer afterwards, bought a T-shirt from them. I enjoyed them. I'm like, I'm gonna start downloading some of their music. That
Yeah.
was I enjoyed the heck out of them. So shout out
Yeah.
to Moondog too.
Yeah. So great show overall, man. Great show.
Yeah,
But the reason we're here is we got a great one this week, don't we? I mean,
yes we do.
this one is kind of one of my, and I say this with all of them, but this is probably top three of my favorite movies. And yeah,
Wow.
I will say that. I think it's one of Scorsese's underrated gems. I think it's one of his best. And a lot of people say this is kind of a pool, which is, I don't think it is. I think pool plays a really big prominent part in this. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, we're talking about The Color of Money, Tom Cruise, Paul Newman, and Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Great movie. I always just thought that this was one of my, well, let me rewind that. One of the reasons why I think this is such a great movie is because it is a character study
Mm-hmm.
about people. It's just about people who are not where they want to be and maybe potential unfulfilled for, if not for Paul Newman stepping in or, Eddie Felson. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just a great movie. The way it was filmed, the acting,
Mm-hmm.
the writing, I think all across the board, a gem of a movie.
I
When
couldn't
was the
agree
first
more.
time you saw this movie?
So this would have been something that I had probably recorded off of the TV that, as I've talked about before, Channel 2 used to play movies all the time. And if it was, the Friday 8 o'clock movie, and I probably recorded it off TV and watched, my brother and I watched this. This would have been probably late 80s. So the movie comes out in 86. So it's being played on TV probably 89, 90, somewhere in there. And that's
Yeah.
probably around the time that I would have recorded because Troy and I at the time were living at my grandparents' house. And we watched this thing over and over and over because it's Tom Cruise. And I was like, oh, there's also the bonus of Paul Newman. Now, my grandfather enjoyed watching this with us because he's a Paul Newman fan. So, and then, as we're watching this, he was like, oh, he's playing Fast Eddie Felson. And I don't know if this is a technically a sequel, but he's reprising his role as Fast Eddie Nelson from The Hustler in 1961. So this is 25 years later exactly. And at this point, I didn't know what the old man was talking about, right? If you say so. And he's like, yeah, it's The Hustler, and he's playing Minnesota Fats who's played by Jackie Gleason, and I'm like, sure,
Sure.
yeah, sure. So he ended up buying us a pool table, my brother and I, when we were living there. He bought us a little pool table. It was the intermediate kind, not the big championship size, but there's a smaller one, and then there's an even smaller one below that. But he bought a pool table for Troy and I to play pool on, and my mom was like, I can't believe this. You're going to buy these grandkids. They wanted to roller skate when they were young, and so you paved the driveway for them to roller skate in. Now they're into this Color of Money movie, and you're gonna buy them take your rumpus room and turn it into a pool room. And he was like, "Hey, man, spoiling my grandkids. What are you gonna do? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what grandpas do." So that's that. So we watched it probably 40, 50 times. When you have those VHS tapes at home, you plop it in after school, and you just
Yeah.
watch once a week probably. So
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
near and dear to my heart, but it had been a long time since I'd seen it. So thank you for this. A great choice this week. I was totally blown away. It holds up for me. It brought back a lot of memories. And honestly, now, as we're more cinephiles now than we probably were at the time, watch this movie with a different eye in that now I'm seeing Scorsese is masterful in the way that he filmed this movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
Really
that's
good.
my. Where did you see it? Were you in the theater there when you were what 10 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old?
Yeah, no, I saw it. I probably saw it mid 90s. Just probably rented it because I was in a Tom Cruise phase. I'm a big Tom
Sure.
Cruise fan. I know a lot about, his private life is his private life, and I tend to separate those two. But I love, yeah, Tom Cruise, but I also love Paul Newman. Just getting, like, I'll go into these phases where I'll watch a couple of his movies here and there. I always loved him. And I think it was, yeah, probably mid 90s VHS, rented it. And just, I don't think, like you were saying, I don't think at the time it hit me. It wasn't until I was older that I realized a lot of what the movie's trying to talk about and convey. And when I realized that, that's when it really hit me. And that's when it really kind of went off on this whole thing about manipulation and maybe trying to live old glory years and those kinds of themes that kind of run in Scorsese films in general. But I can see why he was drawn to this character because it's just I think I was kind of raised by people kind of in this atmosphere or in this kind of orbit, of kind of wasted potential or not realizing your full potential. And so that was the part of the movie that really hit me. And I really wanted to that's why I really wanted to do this movie this week was just to talk about it because I just love this movie. And this was kind of like I feel like this was kind of Tom Cruise's beginning. He had done Risky Business. He had done a little bit parts in Taps and The Outsiders. And he kind of front loaded his career like this. He worked with a lot of great directors in the 80s and 90s. I think for me, the jumping off point was kind of Mission Impossible 3. That's when he kind of went, all right, I'm just doing action. He did some movies here and there. He did, what is it, Lion for Lambs or something like that movie in '07 or '08. He did Valkyrie. He did those kind of movies. But I was reading, or not reading, but I was watching this podcast with it's that comedian, that Italian comedian guy that, man, I forget his name. Old Man Brain. But he has
Mancuso?
Was it? Yeah. Yeah, that dude.
Mancuso? Yeah.
Yeah. And he has it with his buddy, and they interviewed the guy from New Girl. Jeez, Old Man Brain. I haven't. Anyways, they interviewed this actor that worked with Tom Cruise on The Mummy. And he was saying that he doesn't do those films because it doesn't do well overseas, which was kind of disappointing because I just always thought, oh man, Tom Cruise, when he was doing stuff like this is what I love about him. I mean, I know he could do the action stuff, but but anyways, I could just go on and on and on and on. Before we do go on and on though, let's do some deeps.
We got some tales here.
Yeah,
we got some tales. All right. So the basic synopsis, just real quick, is a pool hustler, Fast Eddie Felson, finds a young, promising pool player, Vincent, in a local bar, sees him as a younger version of himself. To try and make it as in the old days, Eddie offers to teach Vincent how to be a hustler. After some hesitations, Vincent accepts, and Eddie takes him and Vincent's girlfriend, Carmen, on a tour through the country to work the pool halls. However, Vincent's tendency to show off his talent, and by doing so, warning off the players and losing money, soon leads to a confrontation with Eddie. So there's your kind of your synopsis there. Color and Money came out in 1986. It was written by Walter Tevis. The book was written by Walter Tevis. And the screenplay was written by Richard Price. It's based on the book by Walter Tevis. Directed by Martin Scorsese. It stars Paul Newman as Fast Eddie, Tom Cruise as Vincent, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio as Carmen, Helen Shaver as Janelle, John Turturro as Julian, Bill Cobbs as Orvis, and Forrest Whitaker as Leon. And this might be for one of Forrest Whitaker's first. It was almost like an introducing Forrest Whitaker. I mean, he's way down on the.
Isn't it Amos?
What did I say? No. I said Leon. Is it Amos?
Oh no, maybe it's not. Hold on. Anyways, go ahead. It's not a biggie.
Yeah, sorry.
We'll correct it post.
It's rated R. It runs an hour 59 minutes. 7.0 on IMDb. 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's certified fresh. The audience has it at 73%. Filmed primarily in Chicago, and of course the tournament takes place in Atlantic City. So those are your two. Very, very small. It says, they travel around the country. They filmed pretty much all the pool hall scenes in and around the Chicago area.
Chicago, yeah.
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah, it's a great town. I don't know if you spend any time in Chicago, but I recommend it. There are real pool. I mean, all of the pools have, like you mentioned, and same within the Hustler. Paul Newman does all his own pool shots in the Hustler. Jackie Gleason, who was known to be an excellent straight pool player. In that movie, they play what's called straight pool, which is you just trying to hit as many balls in as you can. Doesn't matter if your stripes or solids. We kind of grew up playing the 15 ball rack, and whoever makes winning gets to choose if they want to be stripes or solid, and then you finish with the 8 ball. The Hustler is based on a straight pool, which is just trying to hit as many balls in as you can, and then you have those beads that are on the racks above you. This movie is about 9 ball, so it's a little different, and Fast Eddie has some opinions on how he feels about 9 ball in comparison to straight pool. But they had real pool champions that played as extras in this movie. Probably the most notable one is the gentleman who plays Grady. Grady Seasons is actually Keith Earthquake McCready, who was very famous at the time. And in 1986, there was after the Hustler, pool became a very, very popular. And by 86, you start to have, like you said, maybe we're in these pool halls, which were real kind of smoky, and, people that or maybe they're just in there to hustle other people. It wasn't, it was kind of seen as, kind of you're just day drinking and chain smoking, and it's people dangerous oftentimes. But this movie really helped bring the pool halls back. And so we saw a lot of that, especially in the 90s. God, we played pool all the time. There were pool halls everywhere. And there's still some here in Petaluma. Buffalo Billiards has still stood the test of time right there on the boulevard. There's also a pool hall up in Katati that has gone through a couple of, I forget what it was called in the 90s at the time. It was packed, man. You had to go in there and you might have to wait an hour or two. And there's 65, 70 tables in this big giant room, and you're waiting. And you're just waiting. You and your buddies just want to buy a couple of pitchers of beer and pay by the hour. But yeah, this really brought pool back. So when you see these actors and you see a lot of these shots that are taking place in this movie, and especially the way that Scorsese films it, you can see that they are actually hitting these shots. So Tom Cruise, who's known to do all his own stunts now, really had to learn how to play doing these trick shots, the one-handed shots that you see and all that. It's all them doing it. Yeah, hats off to the actors who had to learn how to be and pretend to be bad, and sometimes, right? They're
Right.
as the hustle goes. So that's those are the tales that I tell so well, and there you have it. I didn't look up how much it made and everything, but I think since 1986, it's almost 40 years ago. I think that the pool hall owners have a lot to thank about this, because there's not a lot of pool movies.
Well, I think everybody goes through their pool phase. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely did. I remember having morning classes at the JC, and sometimes I would cut the class and just go play pool from like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. to like, noon or something. And on Santa Rosa, on Mendocino there, now it's a bike shop. They sell
Yeah,
bikes out of there. But it used to be a pool hall, a really good one, like the ones
I
they
remember it
show. Yeah, and the
by the
bus
JC.
station and all that had a little
Yep.
bar in there and stuff. And so, yeah, that was definitely the hangout spot on a Friday or Saturday night if you just wanted to take, your buddies out and have a good time.
Or it's a good date night too. It can be a fun date night,
Yeah, definitely.
right?
Took many dates there.
Absolutely.
Broke ass Steve. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, right. It's not that expensive, right? What, 10
right,
bucks for a couple hours? I mean, and you got beer and wings. What's not to love?
right. And so, yeah. So anyway, let's get into this movie, man. This
Yes,
is
sir.
a great movie. Like you had said, I'm just gonna go through some little bits of
Do it.
and follow along if you'd like. This the plot, which is a former pool player, Fast Eddie Felson, has given up the game and is now a successful liquor salesman in Chicago. However, he partners with pool players, including a hustler named Julian, who is outmatched at 9 ball by the young and charismatic Vincent. Now, this is kind of for me, this from the get go, this movie, especially the first half hour, maybe
Mm-hmm.
manipulation. Just the con
Yeah.
is on, and you hear the opening after the directed by Martin Scorsese, and the movie starts. You hear Paul Newman's voice before you hear anything else, and he's trying to sell his bartender at this bar that I guess he owns or manages, and he's selling this bourbon to his barkeep and telling her all about how this is so good and it's made in the same kind of barrels that the other ones are, the good bourbon is. And, you don't even need iodine. It's really cool. And you can slap some,
Right.
wild turkey labels on it. Nobody would
Yep.
tell the difference. And so he's trying to kind of manipulate, whatever you want to say, with with his girlfriend slash bar hop.
Right.
And this kind of shoots off this movie. This is the theme, of this that runs throughout this movie, which is this is Eddie Felson. He is in The Hustler. He was pushed out of the whole Hustler game in New York. It takes place in, I think, in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, the mob had a big hand in hustling,
Right.
and they told him, "Hey, man, you can't do this anymore around here." So we pick him up 25 years later, and now what's he doing? He's selling liquor. And you know what? He's the best. And he makes a lot of money doing it. And he's just the man to kind of, this is what his life has become. He's not where he wants to be, but
No.
he's taking this thing and he's saying, I'm going to be the best at it. And this is where kind of a lot of introductions come in. You get Julian, which is he's stake or he has his like foot in and still into the pool area. He has a couple of pool tables in there. But I think this is where it shows kind of the dynamic of Julian, which is played by John Turturro,
Right.
and Newman, and you see the kind of dynamic in their relationship. And so, what happens when he hears Tom Cruise's Thunderball break? The camera pans to him, and he goes, "That kid's got a sledgehammer break."
Mm-hmm.
Then it kind of stirs something in him. And, just the acting and the writing in this opening
Yeah.
scene to me draws me in. It's so compelling. I'm a big fan of show me, don't tell me kind of writing, and this kind of writing is actually, it makes it look so obvious, but if you have any less actors, I think, it doesn't work. And a lot of people I've heard criticize Tom Cruise as being too over the top and too obnoxious, but I think it's needed. I think it's needed because I think you need to show the naivety. You need to show the obnoxiousness of youth, And when you're young, there's nobody that's going to tell you what to do or how to do it. You're going to just bulldoze your way through shit sometimes. What did you think about this opening scene, Toby?
Well, your takeaways were similar to mine in that he just the whole he's selling bootleg bourbon and they're both trying it. They're both, tasting
Right.
their wares. And Julian's getting his butt whipped over here by the guy, and when Fast Eddie turns to look at Julian's got a little bit of a substance abuse problem, which Eddie's not stoked about, but
Right.
that's his horse, and he's staking him.
Right.
So he's like, I need another 20. I need another 20. He keeps coming over and getting more money from him. He's like, what the hell? He's all, yeah, this guy. He's like, I got this guy. I got this guy. And they look over, and he's playing video games between. He's over there playing this one. I forget what it was,
Tom
but
Cruise.
right. Tom Cruise is playing a video game, so he's like, he's got all the energy in the world. He's got all the confidence in the world. Vincent does, and Eddie is just like you said, and you see the way that Scorsese shows us that Eddie's got. Wait a minute, I might want to get back into the steak horsing thing for real. Julian's
Right.
a mess, but the way that his head turns to look at Vincent and kind of like he comes closer to the screen and then further away. It's just so well shot that you get it. Like he's just all, what? He's hearing this jackhammer break, right? Like you
Yeah.
said. And now he's
What?
like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, I mean, this was shot too by Michael Bauhaus,
Okay.
who did a
Yes.
lot of Scorsese movies. He did Goodfellas, he did Last Temptation. And this movie, like you said earlier, this movie is a lot in the pool halls where it's dark, it's smoky, not a lot of sunlight. And even in the sunlight, when there is sunlight, it's still gritty.
Yeah.
You feel the coldness. They're in the snow, you know. You feel
Yeah.
that coldness through the screen. And I think that plays a lot into this of like, who is this guy? Who is this character? And when he moves to kind of get a closer look to what Tom Cruise is doing,
Yeah.
I mean, the idea, and you text me this scene, and you were watching it. And it's like, you know, when I mean, Tom Cruise is basically just wiping the floor with this Julian character, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, he's just saying, let's just play, and the look, play, no money, man, and the look from Newman to Tom Cruise is that one of like, is this guy for real?
He's like, shit. This guy
Yeah,
just wants to play, dude.
and
Right?
like for us, I think for any normal person we'd be like, oh yeah, cool, man, yeah, all right. But because it's such, I don't want to say corrupted, but it's such a, you know, in this kind of arena of hustle and go get what you can, manipulate whatever you need to do, but get that money. This is unheard of for Paul Newman or for Fast Eddie Felson.
Right.
And when he hears that, he immediately wants. He knows it's either for real and this dude's a chump, or he's a hustler and he knows what
Right.
he's doing. And it's not what is it? It's the former. You know, he's kind of a chump because he doesn't realize, especially after he talks to his girlfriend, Carmen, played by Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Yes.
And after a brief exchange with her, he realizes, oh, they don't know what they're doing.
They don't know
They
what
have
they're doing.
no
And he's
clue.
got dollar signs, dude. He's like, this guy, okay, I might quit the
Yeah.
booze business and stay course. I mean, this guy's got a meal ticket. I want 60%.
Well, he's like, yeah, he wants to know, like, what's the deal?
Right.
And so
Right.
he says, you know, he's just, how about I take you two out for dinner? And she's like, well, better ask Vincent. Nope, you better ask Vincent.
Right.
And this was the thing. This is kind of where I think the manipulation from Fast
Yes.
Eddie starts. And I mean, the dinner scene, that this is one of my favorite scenes in cinema. I mean, this is just a masterclass on how of showing how somebody manipulates somebody else to
Right.
get them to do what they want. And this is a theme throughout this movie because this is what Newman does throughout this movie. With the surprise is that the girlfriend kind of goes along with it. But that scene, for me, the dinner scene when he's saying, "Man, you are a natural character." You hear that? I've been trying to tell her I've got no, kid. You are a natural character. You're an incredible flake. But that's a
Right.
gift. But that's a gift. He's immediately breaking him down
Yes.
and then building him back up. What I mean, this I love this. I
Dude,
mean, the scene is like, gosh,
the
chef's
first
kiss,
30
man.
minutes, right. The first, like, that's what you said. The first 30 minutes of this movie are a masterclass on how to manipulate two people. And they don't realize that you're going to be working for me, but I don't really give that much of a shit about you guys. I
Well,
see this is I can make a fortune off you guys.
well,
And
Carmen picks up on it.
she
Carmen picks
does.
up
He
on it.
knows. That's right. And
Yeah.
and he knows she's the tough one here. She's kind of the manager, but she doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm going to teach you guys some lessons. You're absolutely right. There's two. The dinner scene for me is the way that it's shot, the over the shoulder shots that you see between in the conversation between them. Scorsese does this so well, and Tarantino does this. I'm assuming he probably got this kind of technique. I don't know if this is taught in film school or you just figure it out, but you have to watch the dinner scene in that
Yeah.
each time that they're talking to one another, you see Tom Cruise is in the foreground and he's in the right hand corner, but he's out of focus. He's blurry. And Paul Newman's across the table and he's in focus. He's in the focus, but he's back in the background. And he's talking, and what he's saying is trying to focus Tom. And then it goes back over to the other shoulder. And then every time it goes back, you see more and more of Tom Cruise's character, which each one, but by the end of the scene, Tom Cruise is literally half the screen, but it's the back of his head and he's out of focus. And
Right.
it's almost like you have to look around. It's very claustrophobic feeling, which all these scenes are in these pool halls. It's very kind of
Yeah.
claustrophobic, and
Yeah.
you kind of, you watch the movie with like hunched shoulders a little bit, because you're just like, and you know he's getting worked, right? He's playing him, and just I was like, why is he putting more and more of Vincent in the screen? And I
Right.
thought, if this is the looming young kid that is going to, and when you get to the end of the movie, it makes even more sense, where you're like, he's coming for the old man. And
Yeah.
that's why every time they cut back and forth, it's a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's so subtle the way he shot this. I just love it so much. I watched it over and over and over again. And I was like, I'm not even listening to what they're talking about. I was just watching. At one point, I was like, shit, I got to put the subtitles up, because I'm not paying any attention to what they're saying. I'm just watching. I was like holding my breath.
Well, I
It's
think, yeah, I think,
absolutely
you
amazing
know,
filmmaking.
yeah, I mean, and I suggest anybody watch the scene
Yes.
to kind of get, again, show me, don't tell me, kind of the subtlety or the undercurrent of what they're trying to say. Because in the next scene, if for those who haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it, but he knows these two people at the bar, right? But Tom Cruise and his girlfriend don't know that. So he plays off the guy leaves. I'm going to go pick up that girl within 2 minutes. And he
Right.
goes over, but he knows the girl. They don't know that. But the next day, Carmen comes in and says, "What were you talking about? Rich can be arranged." Because that's what the whole dinner meeting was about, was he wants to tell them, he says that if you're good at anything, the best, then Rich can be arranged. Rich can come fairly easy. And this kind of captures Carmen's kind of attention. And
Oh,
again,
yeah.
Carmen is the fast one in this couple. She's the one that kind of picks up on us. She's a lot more street smart than Vincent is.
Very savvy.
And
Yes.
the next day she comes to him and says, "What were you talking about that?" So they go and they sit in his Cadillac.
Yes.
And the whole dialogue that they have is so, it's just, he says to her, "I invest. What do I invest in?" And she says, looks around and she says, "Excellence." And so just from that answer, he knows, okay, like this, you got some brains. What does Vincent see in you? Because he has to know, like, how did they get together? How do they stay together here? And she goes, "Well, I was, what was it? I met Vincent at the police station. My boyfriend
Right.
was caught robbing his mom's house." And he says, "Look at this. Look at this. It's a necklace, right?" And he shows him, and she's like, Vincent looks at it and says his mom has one just like it at home, you know. And Vincent, so he goes, what do you see in him? And she's like, "Vincent's the best. That's what he sees in me." And so I think he realizes that she's okay. I can help. Are you going to help me with him? Which he says later in the movie. But he understands that, okay, this I can do this because she's gonna learn. And I think that kind of cements the partnership. Now the only thing is that he has to sell it to Vincent, which is Tom Cruise. And yeah, and I feel like that's just another great scene, just one on top
the
of the other.
the Cadillac scene is very similar to the dinner scene, in that at the beginning of the dinner scene, you see all three of them, and then as the
Yeah.
conversation gets started, it's just Eddie and Vincent, and Carmen's not in any of the shots. It's just the two of them, back this way, this way, this way. And then when it's just Carmen and Eddie in the car, it's also done with these over the shoulder shots, but it's being shot from outside the car. And you can see the trees on the shadow on the driver's side window, and you can, and so they're talking, and Carmen's giving Eddie way too much information. He's like, "She's a con. I can work with that. She's had trouble with the law. I can work with that. I know that these are people that probably aren't going to do anything to go back to jail, perhaps." So, I mean, she just tells him too much information about herself. But
Well,
I
I
thought the
just see it
car.
as, yeah. Well, I just see
I
it as
thought
like she's street smart. That's how I see it.
yes.
I see it as like she's just street smart, and he recognizes that.
But
Continue. Sorry, I
street
didn't.
smart means you don't want any trouble with the law. You're going to avoid the police at every
Yeah.
encounter. And I don't even think there are police in this movie at all. So we're not
No.
really not worried about the police. But the way it was shot from outside the car, what that told me was he's still manipulating her, but it's a little tougher. It's a harder shell. The shell being shot from out, it's like it's going to be a tougher sell with Carmen. He doesn't have his all figured out with Carmen. So
Yeah.
I just thought, and maybe I was overthinking it, but I was like, why didn't he shoot it with cameras inside the car so that we're not viewing it from outside in? I just saw the car as sort of the barrier that he's got to break
Yeah.
between the two of them.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, and so I think so. The next scene is basically, he has to get Vincent on board.
Yeah,
And
he's
where
got to
does
get
he
Vincent
find
on board.
Vincent? He works at a place called Child World, selling newborn children toys
Yeah,
and
right.
accessories, which is very symbolic of this whole thing of Vincent is a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he
Oh yeah.
has to be kind of born into this. He wants to take Vincent into this world where he needs to learn. He needs to learn how to hustle. He needs to learn to exploit his talent. Eddie says in this movie, money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
Yes.
So he has to. That's his mantra in trying to get Vincent into onto this road, which he says, in the back stock room. Where he says, 6 weeks, get on the road, you know, get some seasoning, put together some stuff.
Right.
He sees the potential here of of thousands of dollars, thousands upon thousands of dollars that this guy could do. Vincent has no idea that this is on the radar. Vincent has no idea that he can do this. He just, he's like, this is my job, Eddie, and Eddie's like, really? Take a look around. So then
Right.
he has to go to his, look at Carmen, and he's like, well, what? He's like, take a look, kid. She's starting to, you know, she doesn't get the allure of this place.
Right.
So it's working on Carmen now because he knows Carmen's, whatever he does, Carmen's going to back him up. So it's just another manipulation after minute. Now, watching this, you were kind of thinking, Newman's, Fast Eddie's not the best person. He's kind of the anti-hero in this story, I think. But in the story of, if Tom Cruise and Carmen were just to hit, the small time hustles, maybe they make 150 a night,
Right.
$100 a night,
Yeah.
and they're
Not much.
happy. Yeah,
Right.
because they don't, and so he's opening up this world to him, and it's not child world. It's you need to be born into this world of thousands, which I don't know. It's just another great scene, a great scene, great scene, great scene. It's just stacked on top of each other. Um, so after that, they get on the road. They talk him into it. He gives them a balabushka,
A balabushka.
which is the thing of trying to get him to, like, expand his bubble.
It's a
Look at
huge
look at
gift.
here, play with this.
Right. It's a
Your
huge
thoughts
gift.
on that? On
It goes back to Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. If you could, I mean, this is the thing. He's like, once I give him this stick, he's mine. I have him forever. This
well, even
kid,
Vincent
he's got
says,
all the confidence in the world, and he's dumb. This is how Eddie sees him. He's got all the confidence in the world and he's stupid, but he's got a really, really smart girlfriend who I'm very much attracted to. And that could be he's got to stay disciplined among
yeah,
himself, right? He's been hustled before. In The Hustler, he was hustled by an older steak horse, and this time he's the old man who is gonna. But he learned his lesson 25 years ago. But did he? Because now he's hustling bootleg booze, and he's like, I'm like you said, I'm not where I want to be. Things didn't work out. I've got all the talent in the world, but I self-destruct. And
right,
that's Vincent is he's like, if I can somehow harness this guy's energy and funnel it into the flux capacitor, I can maybe, I mean, I'll be rich beyond my wildest dreams. And all I got to do is just sit back and watch pool. That's all I got to do. But I got to
And if it
teach
was
this
only
kid
that
some,
easy, you know.
yeah, control,
Um,
control. You must learn control.
yeah,
So he gives him the balbushka, and then
yeah,
Vincent immediately goes out and starts showing everybody his shiny new toy, right? And he's just all, well, he gives him the balbushka, and then as soon as he has Vincent, he does this thing where all of a sudden he goes, I got to make a couple phone calls. And now
yeah.
Vincent, now that he's got him, Vincent's like, so, I mean, and now he's this kind of stuttering, mumbling, he's like, well, thank you. And he's like, yeah, hang on. And now he's not that important anymore. He immediately changes the dynamic. Now he's in charge. And he's just like, all right, you're welcome, kid. Yeah, go out and play with your toys. And he kind of is just dismisses him. And he makes a fake phone call because as soon as, you see Vince running around the pool hall. Oh my God, Babushka. It's about, you know what that thing's worth? Oh my God. Didn't that guy die like 15 years ago? And like everybody
Well,
in
he
the
says, but
room
he
knows what a
says, and he
Babushka is.
says to, yeah, he says to Paul Newman, he says, you're pushing pretty hard, which he
Yeah.
knows, he's realizing too. Tom Cruise is starting to realize, dude, I mean, can we really do this? And I think, the Balabushka thing, and then telling Carmen telling Carmen, hey, go across the street and buy some cigarettes.
Yeah, he
And
gets her
Carmen
out of
does it.
there. He's like, don't let him
Right.
show you this stick. And like, this is good for
Well,
him.
no,
This is lesson number two.
it's what he was saying about his girlfriend at Child World, which was, you're losing her, kid. And she doesn't get the allure of this place, and so he makes it so it seems like, because he's like, hey, where'd you go? Well, I went across the street, bought some cigs. Well, they sell cigs here.
Yeah.
Well, I just felt like going out, and he's getting this insecurity in him of like, well, maybe he's right. And so when he goes back and tells Eddie, he's like, yeah, I was, that's when what you're talking about. He's on the phone. Yeah, hold on a second. He's like, I
Yeah.
was checking her out, feeling her up, she's doing real good. He's like, oh, okay, I'm glad I'm wrong. And, he's
Yeah.
just realizing that after the whole buying six thing, he goes up to Eddie and says, all right, let's do it.
He
And
does one
Eddie's like,
break and sinks the one ball on the break. And he's like, I'm in. Whatever we're
yeah,
doing,
yeah,
whatever you're selling, I'm buying. And
yeah,
they're now both he and Carmen are working Vincent. They're both,
right.
and it's kind of sad to watch. You're just like, oh, it's Tom Cruise. He's in the height of his powers. It's the mid '80s. He's got the big pompadour hairdo, and he's kind of a Guido kind of character with his name on his shirt, and he's just, you're almost kind of like the way that Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio plays the Carmen character is masterful. She
Yeah.
is an absolute pro in this. I love her for everything else she's been in. Obviously, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and The Abyss, and I mean the list goes on and on. She is glorious in this character, and like very kind of unlikable
Well, I think
girlfriend who is
she's
the kind of managing him. They're both
Well, I
managing
think
him, but
that she's kind of looking out for him. She's still, no matter, the manipulation is on, but
yes,
she's trying to get out as much as for him as for her too. They're the team. She's still the manager, or in her eyes, is still, she's learning from Eddie. This is an enterprise. She's learning
yeah,
how to do this, and she's learning from Eddie, listening to Eddie. Well, Tom Cruise doesn't know what's going on. He just
no,
thinks, "Oh, this guy wants to take me, and I have to win a
right,
bunch of pool games." And
yeah.
it's not even about that, but he doesn't
He's
get
the
it, and
dancing
that's
monkey,
what,
right?
yeah, and I think that's what Eddie Felson is counting on,
Yeah.
is that I'm going to teach you. Here's some hustles, and like they said when they're leaving on the road, he's like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to lose often." And he's like, "Oh no, yes you will. You're
Yeah.
going to lose a lot, but sometimes when you win, you lose." And that was the first kind of thing. So,
I think he says sometimes when you lose, you win.
no, that's what it is. That's what it
He
is.
says sometimes when you lose, and Vince is like, "What the hell?
What does
What
that
on
mean?
God's flat earth are you talking about?" Right? It
Well,
doesn't
because
even make any sense to him.
he just thinks it's a teacher trying to tell him how to
Right.
play pool, and he tells him, "I already know how to play pool, man." So
So
yeah,
as Vince is walking around, I just got to also mention the way that Scorsese uses his soundtrack is everything is calculated, and to the point of in the part of the song where the lyrics are being sung are a direct connection with what's happening in the scene. As Vincent's running around going, I got a babushka, babushka, on the jukebox. Who Owns This Place by Don Henley is playing, and the lyrics are snakes in the garden, apples on the tree. And it's Eddie standing there, and he's just, if he could be salivating, he would be. He's like, he's the snake in the garden, and Vincent is the apple on the tree. I'm like, dude, Scorsese's the best, dude.
Yeah,
Are you
dude.
kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, so okay, so then Vincent and Carmen hit the road with Eddie in his Cadillac, visiting a series of pool halls, with Eddie taking most of any winnings and absorbing losses. Eddie attempts to teach him the art of hustling, but Vincent balks at having to play below his ability. At a pool hall run by his old acquaintance, Orvis, Eddie becomes fed up with Vincent's arrogance and leaves him. So that first thing, that first pool hall was at
Chalkies.
Chalkies? Yeah.
Chalkies.
Yeah, and Orvis is the first one to kind of remember Fast Eddie Felson, and
Yeah.
he's like Fast Eddie Felson.
Table 7.
And again, the pool hall, they get there at 3 o'clock. What was it? I think it was 10 after 3 in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and it's like it's just in a bad part of town. And
Yeah.
again, the way that the outside the city streets of Chicago is filmed, it's like a ghost town. It is like the stores are boarded up, it looks like, and they're old and they've been there forever. And it's just this grittiness again that you feel. This is where kind of this is the first kind of confrontation between Eddie and Vincent. And Eddie's trying to tell him, look, don't be a showboat. There's a guy over there. He's got about 5,000, 6,000 in his pocket. He doesn't mind losing. He just doesn't want to give it away.
Right.
So it's something to kind of, okay, you pick that up, but now not Vincent. Vincent is like,
He can't help
this is
himself.
how I play,
Right.
Again, so then that night when they have Vincent's showboating and Eddie leaves him there, just leaves him behind. He's like, fuck this guy.
Right,
Gets
because
back
the
to the
guy,
hotel.
the whale
Yeah.
that they were gonna end up hustling, is just like, boy, that boy is hot, and
Yeah.
he goes over and Orvis is standing and Orvis knows that Eddie is like, your kid's out of control, dude. Like
Yeah.
the last thing he wanted to do is come in here. First of all, he told him to leave the babushka in the car, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
He's all, you walk in here with this thing, and nobody will come near you with a nickel. And he's just like, okay, I mean, that's a good lesson. Don't walk in here with a $50,000 cue stick, dude. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know what that thing is, dude. And we'll talk about babushkas in a minute, because I had to know. I'm like, what is, tell me about the bal. But before they walk into Chalkies, they get out of the car and they look at it. And there's winos sitting front drinking out of bags, right? And and then Paul Newman says, this used to be a nice, average, bad neighborhood. Now look at it. I love that line.
Well, that's the thing. And then after he realizes that Vincent had come back to the hotel, grabbed the balabushka, went back to play with it.
Yeah.
That's when the scene you're talking about, where we see him showboating to Werewolves of London. But then that precedes.
He's all, I made money. He's all, you lost money.
So that precedes another great scene in the Cadillac, which is, tell me what you want to do. This is Fast Eddie Felson talking to Vincent. Right. Tell me what you want to do, because you're listening. He goes, you're listening, but you don't hear. Yeah. And proceeds to tell him his kind of, not really in detail, but like kind of, hey, 25 years ago, I got the screws put on me. It was over before it really got going. And he goes, I see you and I'm jumping again, and so he's trying to tell Vincent about hustling. He's trying to tell him that he's got a fucking racehorse, a stallion. Yes. And Vincent, you can see it kind of sinking in, but he's still not getting it. He's still just, I'm a pool player. Like he says, I'm a fucking pool player. I play pool. That's all Vincent knows. And that's all
Yeah.
he's willing to stick to. And so the next day after that, they go to breakfast and he's still not. Newman is like, hey, look, I'll tell it again this way. If you didn't hear me last night, this is I'll tell you again. You would have done that anywhere else, Atlantic City would all be gone, because the
Yeah.
players, but it's chalkies and the players don't leave the streets. So he's trying the first kind of hustle, which is two brothers and a stranger.
Yes.
And it goes so well, man. And
It
and, and
goes
they got that
perfect.
guy, Ron Dean, I think his name is. Any Chicago movie with John Hughes, The Batman Begins, this dude
Yep.
that's sitting next to him is Ron Dean, and he plays Emilio Estevez's dad in The Breakfast Club. He was in Batman, The Dark Knight, and yeah, this guy. So, anyways, two brothers and a stranger. They pull off this hustle, but what happens, man? What happens
So
when?
what happens is Vincent is a bit of a jealous hothead, and he's gets pissed at Eddie and also at Carmen to a lesser extent. But what he's not getting, they're trying to rattle him, which they do, but they're also trying to get this game from $20 a game or $50 a game to some actual money. Let's actually make some money. And
Yeah,
so he's like, he's all, put your teeth back in and take your hands off the girl. And he's all, I'll put my teeth back in when you pull your diapers up or something. They get into this, Eddie and Vincent, and the whole bar room's just all, oh damn. And the high roller, who's apparently Eddie, who's in there, and he's got the young hot girlfriend who's Carmen. Nobody knows that this. They're all being hustled.
right.
The three of them are all in on it. And
Big money game.
the Bart, he's like, how much? The guy, he's like, hey, we're trying to play for money over here. The guy who Eddie's or Vincent's playing, and he's just, so how much you playing for? $50 a game. He's all, how about 500? And the bartender's all, how about 1,000?
You want to
And
make it
it's
1,000?
you want to make it 1,000? And Eddie's like, see, this is what I hope you kids are listening, because
Right.
this is how it works. And next thing you know, they're all laughing and joking, but they go out and they see Vincent, who they're all parked around the corner, and Vincent's fucking furious. You had your hands all over her, blah, blah, this is a bullshit and all this. And they both all, it's an act. Don't you get
Yes.
it? It's just,
It's
we're
a
acting.
hustle.
It's a, and he's like kind of a kind of moment where like the kid, he's a little slow, but he's
Yeah.
getting it right.
All right. So after that, he and Carmen struggle to rein in Vincent's showboating. But after a string of
Yeah.
successful games, Vincent plays the famed Grady seasons. And
Yes.
this is and Eddie's telling him to dump. He's gonna dump. But the
Mhm.
camera work that you were talking about earlier, over his
Yeah.
shoulder, starts out on Eddie's left, right? And there's
Yes.
a rule in filmmaking that says you can't, once you establish a line, you can't cross that line.
Right.
So if it's
Right.
over the left, if it's over the or right shoulder, I should say, excuse me, then you have to play on that line, right? On the right
Right.
side. His left, your right. But he does a really cool thing here when he says, that's Grady Seasons. And you want me to play him? Yes. And you're going to lose.
And it
He crosses that
moves.
line to this
Yes.
side. So
Yes.
now he does that because he has Carmen on this side too. So now he's playing, now he can go back and forth between Vincent and Carmen. That's a great use of camera work right there. But it's also highlights
It
kind of the
changes the
idea that,
audience's
like,
perspective, right?
right. And when he says, you want me to dump? And he says, how come why can't we have a hustle
Right.
where I win? And Carmen says, because if you play him and you lose, the odds between you or in Atlantic City, the odds between you will skyrocket. And he says, see, she learns because she's
Yes.
picking it up, man. But
She gets
he
it.
doesn't get it still.
Right.
So he proceeds to play him, and they play, and that's when I think Eddie felt Fast Eddie gets that yearning back. He sees these two great guys, Vincent and Grady Seasons, and Vincent decides that he's going to play him. He's going to lose, but he's going to lose his way. And
Right.
and Carmen has to rein him back in at the end there. But
Oh yes, she does. She's like, if
yeah,
you win one more game, you're gonna be humping your fist for a long time. And then she turns and walks away, and it's like, got it.
But that's where the whole that's just a turn in the story because that's when Eddie, you know, he goes out and he gets hustled by
He
Amos.
does.
Yeah, the
Amos.
Forrest Whitaker,
Yes.
and with Vincent and Carmen watching.
Well,
And I've seen a
he
lot
had
of
been
doing the
kicking
deep dive on
ass.
this. Yeah, doing the
He
deep
had
dive
been
on
kicking
this.
ass, and Amos had been waiting in the wings the whole time. And he's talking about dude, he's playing and telling him how he was used as experiments for like, dude, oh my god. The stuff that Forrest Whitaker's character is saying is horrifying. He's all, yeah, I was a subject. And he's all, a subject? What's a subject? He goes, electroshock and it's just all, oh my god, dude, so brutal. Which, by the way, not unheard of, especially for black men at the time. Like he
Right,
was being like you to have the Tuskegee Airmen, and the list goes on and on. We have a rich history of this, but that's how he was making money. I'm a test subject. I'll eat the poison and see if it kills me, kind of thing. I mean, brutal, right? Just terrible, terrible stuff. And
right.
he's getting hustled, and Eddie gets hustled and doesn't even see it coming.
And well, when he does finally see it coming, he's like, bullshit, do it again. And
Right.
when he finally confronts him, he's like, "Are you a hustler, Amos?" He said, "What? You want to quit? You don't have to pay me."
You don't have to
And
pay
he goes,
me.
"Fuck you, pal. Do it again." Doubles
Yes.
200, puts 400 down at the last one. And
Now he just wants to beat him. He's like, am I good
yeah,
enough to actually beat this guy?
right.
Or am I,
And this
what
is
have I
nine
done?
ball too. Right. This is nine ball. And this is it's not new to Eddie, but it's new. The whole culture is new to him.
Yes. Right.
He shot straight pool. He says this is like cribbage or
Yeah,
handball,
it's for
you know?
bangers. Yeah, it's cribbage
Yeah.
and handball,
And
right? It's schoolyard stuff.
so when he's done, he's a little tipsy, but he tells, Vincent, he cuts him loose. He tells him, I've shown you everything. I showed you my ass in here.
I
I
showed you
have
my
nothing left
ass.
to
And
teach you. And they're just like, well, what are we supposed to do? Oh, I don't know. Here's you. Here's Atlantic City. In between's about 27 pool halls. Do the math.
right.
And, Carmen's just like, well, why are you talking to us this way, Eddie? Gives him the money. And they have this confrontation, which I love. Again, another great
That
scene on
hallway,
the staircase.
stairway conversation. It's so
Yeah.
good.
He's like,
Yes.
if you're going to give me money, he's like, this is nickel and dime shit. I'll give you money, but don't you tell me what I'm about. And it's basically a breakup. Basically, they cut loose of Eddie. Vincent and Carmen cut loose of Eddie. Eddie just takes off. And then
Takes
we
the
get this
balbushka,
montage.
gives him the balbushka back,
Yeah.
breaks the handrail, which I have to assume was just Tom Cruise. I
Yeah.
mean, like, we got one take. You got to put that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's shocking. Like they are acting their asses off in this. It
Right.
feels very, very real. And you're like,
Right.
again, it's in a hallway, very claustrophobic feeling, and it's uncomfortable for the audience. They're all going through it. The Eddie's just like he said, I showed you my ass and I got nothing left to teach you, kid. All this kind of go on, and Carmen takes the money. She's like, all right, she'll take she comes back and takes the money, and then Eddie, here's your character study where Eddie's now has got kind of a come to Jesus moment. He goes and
Yeah.
takes Balbushka and starts. They got that montage of him. He's training, dude. He's like,
Yeah.
damn it, I'm a pool player too.
Well, he quits drinking. So you see him drinking soda and coffee.
Yep, coffee.
He
That's
gets his
right.
eyes.
Bottled water.
He gets his eyesight checked out. So you
He gets
see him
glasses.
starting to take
Yes.
care of his body. He's swimming.
Yep.
He's reading the newspaper, but he's
Yeah.
playing all day long.
All
He's putting in
day
the hours. You see him lose to Roselle, which was the guy that Tom Cruise beat
at
so
Shockies.
flamboyantly.
Yep.
You see him get beat by him, but then he goes and plays some more. He comes back, plays Roselle again, beats Roselle. So this was kind of this is kind of the turning point for Eddie, which is thinking the turning point in the movie because I think this now he becomes kind of the I'm gonna go and play
I'm
in
gonna go
Atlantic
win this.
City.
I'm gonna go win this freaking tournament.
Right.
When he beats Moselle, he hustles all those kind of schlubs, and I think Iggy Pop's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
or maybe he was earlier, but Iggy Pop makes an appearance in this, super skinny with the T-shirt, I think. Um, but he when Moselle gives him the money and Orvis is standing there, Eddie takes the money and he's all, "So you boys going to Atlantic City?" He's like, "Dude, now we're on, dude. It's tournament time." And he comes walking in his 3-piece suit and he checks into the hotel and here we go.
So the last part of the movie, Eddie enters the Atlantic City tournament and plays a couple people, and he ends up having to play Vincent in this, I think, second round or third round. And they have a game. They're going back and forth. They're each making these insane shots. It's a nail biter, goes down to the wire. Eddie ends up winning and is just so relieved because it takes the monkey off his back. Yeah. It's kind of like the teacher he establishes that he's kind of the best and he's back.
He's good. Yes.
And he's celebrating with his girlfriend and his girlfriend shows up. So they're celebrating in the hotel room and Vincent shows up and bashes all of that and says,
"Oh, dude,
$8,000. Here's $8,000. What's this for? I dumped. He goes, once I beat Grady Seasons, the odds between me and you went through the roof. He goes, I got $4,000 to lay off and I dumped. And so
here's your 60%.
Yeah. And
your cut. And his girlfriend, Janelle, is like, she knows that this was fucked up. She knows that was, and once again, Eddie, the hustler, gets hustled.
Right.
And he didn't see it coming. We did two brothers and a stranger. It worked.
Just like,
when I missed that five, I knew it was going to be the 5-ball. When I saw the lay of the table, I knew it just the whole crowd. Oh God, it was so beautiful. And you're just like watching this all, no.
Yeah. So Eddie has another moment where he's like, he forfeits his next match. He forfeits potentially $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
And gives back the money to Vincent, and then through Carmen says, all I want is his best game.
Right.
And so the finale is
I'll meet me in the green room. I'll be in the green room if he wants to come give the money back. Take the money. No, give it to charity, whatever. And he's just all, I'll be in the green room.
Yeah. And this is where Vincent finally gets to say, you used us. You used me. And he says, you're right. But now you're playing with the big boys. You're not over there playing with child toys anymore. He's like,
you're not playing with baby dolls.
Yeah. And he goes, all that other stuff, though, I'm not too proud of that. But I want to play you. I want you to, I want your best game. And so I think, it kind of ends kind of open-ended. He just breaks. He says, I'm back. And then Werewolves of London starts playing, which is a fucking great indie. And I think this, again, one of my favorite movies. I think it's kind of one of Scorsese's underrated, underappreciated movies. I think after Goodfellas, I wasn't a really big fan of Gangs in New York. I wasn't a big fan of, was that one that he did with the first, who was that guy that he was a pilot? He was a multimillionaire. I forget that movie, but
Howard Hughes.
Yeah, Howard Hughes. I wasn't a big fan of that movie, so I think this is kind of where Scorsese, I think, was in his prime. I think it was kind of the peak of his powers. I'm not a big fan of his. I didn't watch the Desert Moon one that came out a year or two ago. I just feel like, I think he's on his. I think he's always done it for himself, but I think now he's really just. He's at an age where I think he's just really drawn to stuff he's drawn to, and that's what he's going to do. And that's fine. I appreciate it. I love it. And I'll always hold him in high regard in terms of filmmaking. He's a legitimate auteur. But I think this is one of his gems where I think it just went under the radar because I think, he came back. I think he did Last Temptation after this. And then he went on to make Goodfellas. And so I think it was kind of like a low point in his career because he had just come off of, New York Stories.
Okay.
Which didn't do well.
Right.
and so he needed a hit, and I think this was it. Yeah, Newman said he loved it. Tom Cruise says he loved working on it. I think, and it shows in film that it's just a great told, great,
Right.
solid shot, solid. Yeah, I give it. To me, this is a 10 out of 10. I love this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so super watchable. It's a 10 out of 10 for me as well. And you, I mean, I don't think a lot of people know that this is a Scorsese movie
Yeah,
until I mean, our generation saw this as a Tom Cruise movie.
yeah,
Our parents saw it as a Paul Newman movie. It's all of those things at the same
yeah,
time. It can be all of those things individually. You can watch it. You can watch Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise. Say what you will about Tom Cruise. When he's on the screen, you have to pay attention to what's happening. He is such a phenomenal actor in everything that he does, and I'm
yeah,
unabashedly a Tom Cruise fan when it comes to now. I won't watch. I don't think I've seen all the Mission Impossible movies. I appreciate them when I do see them. I know how much of he does all his own stunts and all that. I enjoyed Maverick, Top Gun 2. I didn't think we needed it, but it was on an airplane and I had a 5-hour flight, and so I watched it and I was like, I enjoyed that.
yeah.
But with Scorsese in this, it does totally fly under the radar. Where I was like, this is Scorsese. I had to remind myself, and having watched it dozens of times before even realizing it, now certainly appreciating it.
Well,
Watching
I
it
think
for the filmmaking and storytelling ability, just by the choices that he makes in filming it, brilliant. Just
right.
brilliant movie.
Well, like I brought up at the beginning, I think Tom Cruise, and I think he's going back to it now, but he front loaded his career. I mean, look at he did Taps. He does The Outsiders with Coppola. He does a Legend with Ridley Scott. The next year, he does his brother Tony Scott in Top Gun. He does A Color of Money with Scorsese. He does Rain Man in '88 with Barry Levinson.
Yeah,
And then he does Born on the Fourth of July in '89 with Oliver Stone. He
yeah,
works with Tony Scott, Ron Howard, Rob
yeah,
Reiner, Sidney Pollack, Neil Jordan, Brian De Palma, Cameron Crowe, Stanley Kubrick, and Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, he's just ripping off all these movies. Whereas now, I think, and again, it goes up to 2003, which I think is a point where he says, okay, I'm just going to do some action stuff for a while, which he does. Like I said, he does Valkyrie and he does Rock of Ages, but that's in the teens. So, I mean, he does these parts, but he's very much doing the action thing now. But now I think he's doing more of the character stuff, the smaller film. Because I think
mm-hmm.
what happens is, I think when Tom Cruise gets on your production, I think he kind of overtakes it. Not in a way of like he's directing it, but in a
Mm-hmm.
way of like, I'm in this movie, so I'm going to be the best that I can. So I'm going to kind of, I'm told that he has production offices on set all the time. He works with the stunt crew. He's
Yeah,
basically works with the stunt coordinator to do all these stunts, which are impressive. And hats off
yeah,
to him. It's
yeah,
why I love him. He's still as charismatic as ever.
yeah.
And so, I mean, I
He's
think
easy
this
on
is
the
one of his
eyes.
best.
I mean, and there was a kind of a lull, like you mentioned. That's actually a really, really great point. And when I think, kind of shocked the world with he worked with Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
The Ben Stiller directed Tropic Thunder. When he comes in as Les Grossman with the oversized hands and the super hairy knuckles, that character, talk about being in a movie for like 7 minutes, and then of
Yeah.
course the end credits. The Les Grossman character, playa, dude. I will watch those just Les Grossman scenes, and that movie, by the way, we need to do because it's so far ahead of its time, and not okay and ridiculous and genius and all of those things with that ensemble cast. And then Tom Cruise playing a character that he'd never played before in like a comedy where everybody knows he's this big, his religious, and then his thing with Katie Holmes, and he needed something, right? There was something that needed to come around, and people were kind of labeling him as a weirdo at the time, and then he comes in with the Les Grossman character, and I think everyone was just all, fuck it, dude. Tom Cruise he's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
He's our
So
generation's Paul Newman, if you
yeah.
will. And he's what,
Oh yeah.
5'7", little guy, Giants fan.
That's right, huh?
Yep, he's a Giants fan.
Yeah.
So
So I think it's
unbelievable.
time to name our Game Six Clay Thompson Award. Do you
Yes,
got
sir.
one for this?
I absolutely do, and it's Janelle.
Janelle.
Janelle, it's Eddie's girlfriend, Janelle. We meet her in the opening scene.
That's a
She
great
is a
choice, dude.
hustler. She's a hustler in and of herself. She is tasting the bourbons, going, "You're right. I can't take." And she comes to Eddie's. She loves Eddie, and all she's been wanting to go to the Bahamas. And he calls her every time that he's going through an existential crisis. He calls her, and she's there for him, and she
Yeah.
cares deeply. And then when he finds out that Carmen and Vincent have played them with the two brothers, one stranger, she's a little asshole or something like that. That she says, yeah, you know, I love her. I needed more of Janelle. She's a gem. She's an angel. She's a likable character.
I think
Yeah,
it. I think
in a
she.
film with a bunch of unlikable characters,
Yeah.
she is a sweetheart, and
Yeah.
I adore her. I adore that character, Janelle.
I think she evens out Eddie too. I think she's the voice of reason in him. When he goes
He
too
needs her.
far one way, she's the one that kind of brings him back. I love
Yes,
that character as well too. Great choice, dude.
thank you.
Mine is Julian, played by John Turturro.
Well done.
I think he plays that character so well. Just a slime ball, low
Yeah,
level hustler who doesn't really know what he has in Eddie until Eddie leaves to stake horse Vince. And you see him at the beginning, and then you see him until the end. He sees him in Atlantic City, and he says, "Hey," sees him in the green room. "Hey, I just wanted to come by and say hi."
yeah, right.
And he just plays it so well. When he comes out at the beginning and he's fasted, he's like, "Oh, check the mirror before you leave the bathroom. I hate that
Yeah,
shit."
right. Which he
Well, it's better than
does.
that shit. I just love his sliminess in this movie.
Yeah.
And great. He does this kind of the same thing in The Big Lebowski. He does
Yes,
those little itty bitty parts, and he does so well with them. I love it. So yeah, mine is Julian.
that's great.
Yeah. So cool, man. Any final thoughts on this?
Boy, I'd say go back. Oh, I do have a final thought. I went around. I mentioned that my mom
Oh
got
yeah.
us pool cues. I went and found my pool cue, and I will just say that most pool cues come in two pieces, like you see them building their sticks together. And the reason why is because this is a long ass thing to carry around with you, right? But I'm sure I noticed it at the time, and I'll hold this up to the camera. Hopefully you can see it. Oh, I'm scraping the popcorn ceiling. I got the best of me. This is because we were into The Color of Money. My mom bought my brother and I pool cues, and this is Minnesota Fats, The
The
Hustler.
hustler.
So it's connected to. I was looking at it earlier, and I'm just all. I'm sure I knew this, but I'm going to call my mom after this and tell her, "Hey, thanks for the Christmas present from 35 years ago. I appreciate it. It's a great. We need to go out. You and I go out and shoot some pool one of these days, buddy.
Yeah, I'm
You
down.
in?
Yeah, I'm down.
Let's bring
Definitely,
it
man.
back. Let's bring it
Bring it
back.
back. I got my final thoughts. It's still
Yeah,
one of my favorite movies. I've said that throughout this podcast. It's just one of my faves. It's one that I don't think not nearly as enough as it should. Like I
yeah,
said, it's this underrated gem. I think it's one of those movies that it's not made anymore. It's not a superhero movie. It's not. There's not a lot of action in it. Like I said, it's a character study, and it's a great character study about just
yeah,
people that are just trying to eke their way through life, and they find something. And um but what does that do to your soul? Do you have to sell your, what does that do to you? What does that do to you as a person What are you giving up? What are you? There's a lot of times these people will self destruct. Which is Eddie's case in The Hustler, and
Yep. And
you
in
tend to love
this,
something so much that it just kills you. And so you kind of wonder after this, is that what happens to Vincent? And it's just a great movie. Love it. One of my top faves, top three, I would say. And I'm glad we did it this week. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I am too. And let me just say this too, just to put a point on what you're saying too, is even though time and time again, Fast Eddie from 1961 to 1986 is finding himself, no matter how much he thinks he's mastered the game and how much he is his wisdom in all of the times that he's failed and come back and failed and come back. These are things that are going to continue to happen to you. When Forrest Whitaker's character Amos he's like I showed my ass out there. You're gonna fall, and it's not. I think I want to say that it was Confucius that said it's not in the amount of times that you fall, it's how you pick yourself back up. So these are all very flawed people. We're all flawed people, and they're gonna keep. They're gonna have their highs and they're gonna have their lows, and we get to see them at the very final scene where he's like, listen, if I don't beat you here, I'm going to beat you in Dallas. And if I don't beat you in Dallas, I'm going to beat you over. And then it's like, there's nothing in Dallas. Like, Carmen's over in the off screen and she's just like, she knows the schedule. They're going to be battling for the time. Hey, I'm back. So right now he's back, but chances are these things, don't let yourself get down. You fall a couple times. Don't let that be the end. Pick yourself back up. Get back out there. You're going to make mistakes no matter how much you think you've got it mastered. You are going to make mistakes again. You're a human being. And I think that this movie really shines a light on that, where it's like, it's not, is it a redemption? It is today. But again, it's going to happen. Don't let it get you down. Learn from it and move forward.
And that is the final.
Well,
Thanks. All right. Well, thanks, Tope, for joining me on this.
thank
Thanks
you,
for everybody
Stephen.
else that's listening, to watching. Thanks for coming on this journey with us. Tell us about what you think about this
Yeah.
movie in the comments. Give us some comments, a like. Make sure you follow and like. It really helps the channel out. It really helps us out. And we will see you again next week. Thanks for listening. Bye, everybody.
Bye.